Today's a bit of an exciting day. It's our first drive of the new LandCruiser 300 series. We've got all 6 models here to test, and we're at the spiritual home of LandCruiser in New South Wales, the Willowglen property owned by the Toyota LandCruiser Club of Australia. So what have we got? We've got the GXL, the base GX model, which you can tell by the snorkel, the really fun and sporty GR Sport model, front and rear diff locks. Awesome, can't wait to get this thing dirty. Next is the VX model, the Sahara, and the top of the tree, Sahara ZX. So today, what we're going to be doing is a little bit of towing, a little bit of off-road. We've had about 2.5 hours in the car on the highway already, so we've got enough time to make an impression. It's going to be a very interesting day, and again, it's just our first drive, but we can't wait to get out and hit the tracks. Actually letting us do some pretty fun stuff here. So we're out at the Willowglen property, as I mentioned before, which is owned by the Toyota LandCruiser Club. There's all sorts of great competitions and things here in previous years. Obviously nothing's been going on with lockdowns and whatnot, but it's pretty cool that they've brought us out to actually let us have a proper drive of these vehicles and see what they can do in the rough stuff, because they're not cheap. Alright, so we've got a bit of a steep descent here, so I'm just going to pop the car into manual mode first gear and see what happens there, see what this gearing's like in low range. And if it's not low enough, we can always use the crawl function, which is pretty handy. Alright, well, definitely no drama so far. So first gear, low range, plenty slow enough. And the suspension's really supple too. It does feel a little bit firm on road, but it's surprising once you get off-road, it really just soaks the bumps up, no problems at all. What a weapon. I think we might have bent the side steps a little bit there, but shows we're really pushing these cars to their limit. And the GR Sport, that's a capable four-wheel drive. Toyotas in recent years have always had fantastic traction control off-road, and so far the 300 series is no exception. But because we're driving the GR Sport, there's front and rear lockers here as well. So they're located just down on the side here. Not in the best position, because if you need to get them quickly, it's a little bit of a hassle, but once you get used to it, it's fine. So I dare say this thing would be able to climb walls basically, but it has so much traction, the only limitation is going to be ground clearance, which, let's be honest, it can do with a little bit more. Alright, so we've just finished this downhill section into a little bit of a mud hole, and then we're pegging it straight back up. So before I hit this mud, just drop it in drive. Try not to splash the photographer too much. So it's comfortable, it's capable, it's powerful, it's a package deal. This new 300 series can do everything. Really enjoying it so far. Another little challenge here. There's a big climb, really chopped out, really rutted. A couple of different lines to take. I think just for the first time we'll probably stick to the right side, a little bit easier. Don't want to bend the car, but again, we're just going to let the car do the work and see how far we can push it. Let's go have some fun. This motor's got so much torque, it's just really easy. On road I noticed that the smaller 3.3 twin turbo V6, compared to the V8, it had more mid-range torque. It wasn't as grunty down low, and that's not a problem. It certainly sounded sweet too, so even though it's a 6-cylinder, it's got a lovely burble to it. So no dramas here at all, low range. We haven't had to use the front and rear diff locks yet, which this GR Sport has. It's gonna be a bit of a weapon, this thing. Traction control's so good in these things these days. Really interested to see if we can put the base GX up there. Now that'd be an interesting test. Let's go and see if we can find a base model to drive. Alright, we started the day off in one of the more premium models, the GR Sport, because I really wanted to see how that performed off-road. But now I want to strip things back even further. Let's go to the very, very low end of the spectrum, the GX model. And to call it the low end of the spectrum is really a disservice to this vehicle, because it shares a lot of the architecture with the others in the range. So yes, it is stripped back, yes, it's very basic, sort of, hard plastics and things like that. but it still feels very familiar. It's still a 300 series Land Cruiser. So if you're a bit like me and getting your vehicle with muddy boots and all that sort of stuff and actually want to get out and use it, it could be a good option, even though, let's be honest, this is probably going to be a commercial vehicle for mines and things like that. But for recreational users like us, it's a good thing. You should have a look at it. Let's see if it's just as capable as the GR Sport off-road though. We're doing a different loop now, into some mud, into some ruts straight away, and this will be an interesting test. So I wanted to go from nearly the top end to all the way down to the bottom, because science. So let's talk about the interior. Well, obviously we're in the very base model here, but something I like, center console opens from either side. Kind of handy. Now you've got some decent cup holders here. All the switch gear is laid out nice and simply. Very big buttons. Sort of reminds me of the D-Max sort of BT50 design. Nice big touchscreen here, even though this is the smallest in the range. That's plenty big enough. And there's storage everywhere. You've got blank switches here to add accessories. Oh, things get a bit gnarly here, better concentrate. So while it is, you know, a bit stark in terms of hard plastics and things like that, the seats are comfy and it does the job. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the POV pack models. And again, to call this basic is not, you know, not doing it credit. This is a nice vehicle. It's just not as nice as, say, the Sahara or the GR Sport. Really leaning towards this though, because it saves you a heck of a lot of money. And you can put that money to better use with, you know, aftermarket accessories and trips around the country. And it's a Toyota at the end of the day. It's still going to hold its resale value. So you might actually find yourself in a bit of a special situation by purchasing a lower spec, because they won't sell as many. This isn't a volume seller. It's food for thought. Looks like we're about to be lifting wheels in the GX 300 series Land Cruiser. So again, first gear, low range, let it crawl. And let's really test this suspension system to see just what it can do. Alright, so that back wheel's completely off the ground. Geez, that system works really well. I'm not really a fan of like hill descent controls and things like that. I've said that many times before. This is sensational. Wow, even this low spec GX model, having this sort of technology, it's a real benefit if you don't want to bend the car. It's also a real benefit if you're getting into four-wheel driving, having these tools at your side. It's going to let you do some pretty cool stuff while you're learning how to do it properly. Nicely done. Very nicely done. Alright, we're in the Sahara. I guess you'd call this upper mid-spec, something like that. And straight up, I'm not really digging this. I'm not a big fan of the interior. Just the cream colour, the cream carpet, this cream trim. It's a personal choice, but it reminds me of my parents' Sigma in the 80s. It's just, yeah, I love that Sigma, but I'm not into this colour. So for me personally, I'd prefer to be back in the base model GX over this, because at least it sort of doesn't feel like I'm in a cheap casino. This feels like I'm in a cheap casino and I feel cheap. I should feel luxurious, but I don't think this one's for me personally. But hey, that's up to you. I'd love to know what your feedback is. If you think this Sahara spec is more your style, let me know. So we're taking it on the same loop we took the GX, and so far so good. Definitely has a few more bells and whistles, and we're looking forward to mucking around with some of these controls a bit more. Obviously we used the crawl control mode previously, and that's really impressive. That's technology that's been emerging, because when it first came out, I remember we didn't really know how to use it as journos. What the hell is this crawl control thing? But coming down that hill before with, you know, massive wheel lift, so much control. I think we were doing less than 1 kilometre an hour, just literally crawling. And I think, as I said at the time, it's a great feature for advanced four drivers and also people getting into the sport, because if you're new, you're going to make mistakes. That sort of technology is going to help you learn safely, properly. So it's not there just to do everything for you, even though it can. It's something you can learn from. It's a very handy feature to have in a four-wheel drive. Now, something the GX didn't seem to have, but the GRS Sport and other higher end models in the 300 series range is this MTS button, which if I press that, stands for multi-terrain select. And we've got auto, dirt, sand, mud, deep snow. So let's just leave it in auto for now. We're going through some really deep ruts. We're probably going to have a few issues with scraping here. Now the GX definitely did scrape here, and I think that's because of smaller tyres. Slightly larger tyre here might make a big difference. These are quite deep ruts. Yeah, oh there we go, a little bit of scraping. Just take our time. Nice hard base. I was a bit worried about the approach angle on the 300 series. It certainly seems low and would benefit from a bull bar just to get a little bit more room, because that bumper sits so low to the ground. By fitting an aftermarket or a genuine bull bar, it's going to increase that approach angle. So far, hasn't been a problem. Really surprised. I personally still would fit a bull bar if I bought basically any new four-wheel drive, but very impressed. So far we've only managed to dent one side step, and we've been pushing this as private property where they host four-wheel drive competitions and all that sort of stuff. So for one dent in a side step in the entire day, pretty happy with that. What a big day, trying to get through 6 different 300 series LandCruisers. Now we got to use them on road. We did about 2 hours on the way here, 2 hours on the way home. We had 2 different four-wheel drive tracks to choose from, different sort of terrain, rocks, mud, the lot. Really testing them at this Willowglen property. We also hitched up a 3-ton Kedron camper, a full-on caravan. This thing was huge, and the 300 series does it with ease. So it's early days, but what can I say? Well, it's a good tow vehicle. It's a good on-road vehicle. It's a great long-distance tourer, but it's also properly capable off-road. Now I can't wait for the next few years so we can really push this vehicle to see where we can take it. But so far, I'm absolutely blown away with how capable the 300 series LandCruiser is off-road. And I actually really like the base model too, the lower end of the field, the GX. I think value for money, that's where I'd go because I'm broke. But the GR Sport was something else as well. Now for my full article, you have to check out 4x4 Australia to see just what I think about the new 300 series. And thanks again for watching.